Okay, everybody, welcome back to the workshop. I have to apologize. You are missing a step. I thought I was recording. That was my garage light turning out. No worries. So I thought I was recording the previous step, and turns out my SD card ran out of memory, so I stopped recording. I have a very nice voice over for it, but I do not have actual video footage of this step. And what I'm talking about is gluing the fillets on my fins. Some people choose to do fillets, some people choose not to. I like having that there as an added insurance for protection against the fins knocking off as the rocket lands on the ground. There's a good chance it'll land on a fin. It happens, and I just rather they not fall off. So, and all kinds of information out there as far as pros and cons of doing fillets. For something this small, I'm a big believer in it, especially just with wood glue. Higher power rockets often use epoxy. I've seen even low to mid power builders use epoxy for their fins or for their fillets, and it works great. Personally, I think it's a little bit overkill for something this small, so wood glue works just fine. But after the fillets, now that they're dry, next step will be to prep the rocket for priming first and then painting. So I will get into that. So the first step for this particular build is to protect the very end of the engine mount tube so it does not get any paint on it, because I still have not attached the engine retainer to this part. I'll be doing that with epoxy, and that sticks better if it's straight onto the paper tube and doesn't have to worry about going through paint. So I'm gonna put just some masking tape around that. A little tricky. I'm going to stand this up and I'm sorry if you can't see this. Okay, let's get that tape worked around. And work that down. In this particular case, too much tape is probably not a thing. This part down here, nobody's really going to see. So if you have the very there, you can see it. So I've got that taped in, and I'm just going to fold the rest of that over a little bit so that it's on there. Actually, what I'm going to do, push that down, and because of the particular paint stand setup I have, I'm going to cut a hole out of that. That should be good. Okay, so I've cut enough of a hole there. I'll be able to get this onto my paint stand. There's different ways you can hold your rockets. I've seen just rolled up newspaper stuffed in one end or the other end. You hold it that way. For this setup, since it's a smaller rocket, I've got my little stand. It's basically, here, I'll show it to you. This is actually a fin alignment tool from Estes that I really like using actually as a paint stand. And to protect it from extra paint, I've just got a plastic bag over it. And then these are basically what amount to spent engine casings. And the rocket just fits right over that. Works wonderfully, keeps the rocket up off the ground or the floor of my spray booth over there, as the case is. Just noticed a little hole there. I don't want paint getting through that, so I'll just cover that up. And what I'm using for paint, for my primer, is this from Rust-Oleum. No big reason why, other than it's easily available for me. My husband works at Menards. It's sold at Menards. Perfect. If you have other spray paints available for you, use whatever you have available. One thing to remember, I've noticed in my experience, once you start the primer layer with a particular brand of spray paint, what I've found out, it works best if you continue on with that same brand. So say you start with Rust-Oleum, it might not work as well if you then switch over to, say, Krylon. Both good brands, but formulas don't really work well together otherwise. So that's just in my experience. Everybody is free to use whatever they like. So I'm going to get this set up. Okay. Shine that back that way, hopefully that's good. Maybe zoom in a bit. Okay, I honestly don't know how much you're going to be able to see with this. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to get the camera in there and not covered in paint. So I will be facing my back to you most of the time, and I already apologize for that. Oh, the nose cone, that's right. Nose cone needs primed too. It is plastic, and this is a primer that works well on plastic. So that's something to think about when you're doing this. My head's cut off the picture. Oh well. Yeah, pay attention to what materials you're using so that it is all compatible. So pretty much anything works with wood and paper. They accept paint and primer very well. Plastic can be an issue. This is a lower power rocket, so I'm not too concerned about paint peeling off of this, but it's definitely, if anybody out there is a higher power rocket builder, why are you watching my channel? But hey, thanks for joining me. But also the higher speeds that those rockets achieve, You might notice the paint can peel off of plastic parts. I'm not into high power right now, so don't ask me how to fix that. I'm not, I'm not one. I don't want to step into that since I have no experience in that. But for the speeds my rockets will likely be flying, I'm not worried too much about that. I am going to use gloves to protect my hands. I'm going to roll my sleeves back a little bit to not get paint on them. And I will also wear a little particle mask. It's not a respirator. I know it won't keep out all of the paint fumes, but maybe it'll keep out some. And if I need to, I'll open the door to add a little bit of ventilation. So definitely important to keep your paint agitated. Okay, that's a good first coat for that. I'm going to let that dry a little bit and add a second coat later. Let that dry and then do the final colors. So when we're ready to do this a little bit more, I'll be right back. Thank you again for joining me, and see you again soon. Okay, welcome back to the workshop. The first coat of primer has dried enough. I'm going to go and check it out, see if I need to add a second coat, and I will go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add a second coat. Whether or not to do it is entirely up to you. This is still going to get 1 or 2 coats of the actual paint color, but I think adding a little bit more primer will help to smooth everything out. All right. Okay, that looks good. 2 coats should be plenty for primer. And I'll check if I need to do any sanding, and then the next step will be applying the color coats. So when that's ready, I'll be back with you. Thanks again. Hello everybody, welcome back. The second coat of primer is nice and dry, dry enough to the touch that it won't mess up if I touch it again. Next step is adding the color to the body tube and the nose cone. The fins will come later. That requires some masking, but I'll go ahead and get the base color on those. So let's get to it. My first step will be to gently remove the nose cone. This gets a different color from the body tube. I could leave it on and just paint over it again, but I just wanted to get a little bit, I didn't want too many layers of paint on this. So I'll set that aside. And then, brand new can of paint, so I need to get this shaken up a little bit. So I'll do this and then I'll be right back. Alright, that's all nice and shaken up. I do want to add a little note here. My base colors are a gloss finish. I have noticed in previous experience and hearing from other builders, when using, this kit uses water slide decals, and when using that particular type of decal, they do stick a little bit better to glossy paint than they do to flat or satin finish. So that's why I'm using gloss for this. There's the light again. If I choose later, if I want a glossy finish, or I can keep it at that, I can always adjust the sheen, how shiny it is, using a clear coat. So we'll see how it looks when I'm finished. And yeah, I'll continue on. That looks good for now. I'm going to set that one aside and then do my nose cone. Again, like with primer, like with any spray paint, any painting in general, if you feel like you need to add more, what I've noticed, it's best to do several light coats instead of one heavy coat. So for the nose cone, since I don't want to hold it in my hand, I have a spare length of body tube that it fits in nicely, and another tube or fin alignment tool that Estes makes. This actually fits onto the base of this body tube nicely because it's made for this size of tube and others. But what this does is it basically adds diameter to the base or to the body tube. This lets me stand it up to dry so that it's all vertical. I don't have to worry about laying it down. So I like the other paint. Actually, I'm gonna leave this on the floor so it doesn't get a bunch of paint on it. I do have to, however, shake this paint up, so I'll do that and then cut that bit out because you don't need to hear that too. Okay, that's nicely shaken up. It's ready to go, so let's move on. And again, the nose cone gets a different color from the body too. This gets the dark gray, as does the fins on the other one. So I didn't get the fins completely covered with the light gray because I'm just going to be covering it again with the dark. Good. Okay. Set you down. All right. So something I found out in my experience through some hardships, if you're working with multiple colors of paint, put the cap back on as soon as you're finished. That way you know, since most manufacturers put the same color of paint on the cap, so that's how you know which one's which. I have, to my great horror in the past, put the wrong color cap back on and then went back to grab it and thought I was getting something completely different, and it was unpleasantly surprised. So I'm going to let those dry and come back, see if I need a second coat, and I will see you again very shortly. Thank you. Okay, everybody, welcome back. My paint is now dry. You can see the nice two tones of gray. Like I said, dry, it's mostly dry. We'll let it cure again overnight till basically till tomorrow, and then I will attach the decals and everything else that needs done with this, because it's not quite yet ready to fly. So once we're ready for that, I will see you again soon.